Okay, here are the ingredients. You have black pepper and bay leaves right there, some regular table salt, a couple of carrots, olive oil. I use Apothic Red or Apothic Crush, which is a red blend. It's very light, but you can use whatever red wine you like. I use a little bit of garlic, a potato. You can use two if you like them. Tomato paste. This is Kurihara soup, but you can also use just regular chicken broth, whichever one is easiest for you. An onion and some big cut beef for stew. You also need some white powdery flour. Now, I have peeled the carrots and the potato, so I'm going to cut those up. So you just want to rough cut them. I'm going to cut this in half and then just sort of at different angles and different sizes until I get those. And then the carrots, same kind of thing. Just sort of cut it into different sizes, different angles. And this just gets different surfaces so that the carrots get the flavor. Okay, so I've peeled the onion. I'm going to cut it into 8 big pieces. And in this case, it's a big onion, so I'm going to cut this in half. So this becomes 8. That's quite a lot of onion. So I think maybe half of one is enough. Okay, so I have the carrots and potatoes. I'm not making a lot, so 2 carrots and 1 potato is enough there. Half an onion cut into 8 pieces. And then here's the beef, which I'm going to show you how to prep in just a second. And the flour. I have begun to heat the pot with olive oil in the bottom. A little bit of extra virgin olive oil. You can use butter if you want, or canola oil, whichever you like. I use olive oil. You can't get it as hot, but it's a little bit healthier alternative. And then I'm heating the water for the Kurihara soup. So, as I heat the oil, I'm going to salt the beef and pepper it. And really should do this on both sides, but I'll do the other side after I get it in the pot. Okay, so you can see that I am boiling the water and that the pot is getting pretty warm. So I'm going to put the oven in, or the beef in the pot in just a second. I have used a 2-cup measuring cup, and I'm put some Kurihara soup in the bottom. I'm going to make 2 cups of Kurihara soup, and then I have extra chicken broth if I want to. So the first thing I do is I put the beef in the bottom here, and I start to brown it. And we want to cook it until it turns color. Okay, that's a little bit warm. So as I'm doing this, I'm going to salt and pepper the other side too. To be more precise with this, you can do it in a frying pan, but I just do it all in the pot. With this pot, it sticks a little bit to the bottom, but that's okay because you get a good soup out of that. And right now, I started on high, but I've got it reduced to about medium or medium-high temperature right now. And I'm just stirring the beef around to brown it. Now that it's a little brown, I'm going to cover it with flour. All I need is a couple of spoonfuls of flour, a couple of tablespoons of flour, but you want to try and get it on the meat and cover the meat because that locks in the flavor. And it also helps you make your soup kind of nice and thick. And then I will stir this a bit and put more flour on the other side of the meat so that it gets all sort of evenly and nicely coated. And you can tell that I've turned the temperature down a bit, which is good, because we don't want the meat necessarily to cook all the way through here, at least not right away. That's all the flour I need. I'm getting a good boil on this, so I'm going to make the Kurihara soup. And there's about 2 cups of Kurihara soup, which I have to mix up. And I'll stir that while the beef is cooking a little bit more. And give this a spin. I don't really want to burn the flour on the bottom, but it's okay for it to get stuck there, and because the wine and the water and stuff will deglaze the bottom of the pan. Now, you can see, let me switch this around. You can see that the meat is kind of coated nicely, and that's what we want, is meat coated nicely with the flour. Now I'm going to add the onions, and I'm going to add the carrots and potatoes. Stir this a bit more. Again, I don't want to burn it, so I want to keep moving it around. It's getting a little brown, so now is the perfect time to put in the Kurihara soup. So that's what it looks like with the Kurihara soup in there, and it's kind of boiling up nicely. You can see it boiling up nicely. I'm going to take my garlic, and I'm going to put in just a little bit, maybe a teaspoon, maybe a little bit more than a teaspoon, and then stir it around. And see, this is deglazing the bottom very nicely so that we don't have a burned bottom. We have the flour and the meat juices and the olive oil mixing together nicely with the salt and pepper and the vegetables. So I'm going to cook that up a little bit, and while I'm cooking it, I'm going to add my tomato paste. Now I'm going to put in a whole can of tomato paste. That's going to give it that nice reddish color and also thicken it up really good. You can do this to taste. The first few times you do it, you kind of adjust the flavor until you get it the way you like it. And you don't even have to put the tomato sauce in or the tomato paste in, but it will make it thicker and kind of delicious. So I do. And then I just stir that tomato paste in, watch it thicken. Now, I can tell, based on the thickness of this with the tomato paste, I'll show you. This is pretty thick. And so I know I'm going to add about 1/4 cup to 1/2 cup of wine, but I think I should add a little more chicken. So I'm going to take one of these and I'll add this. And I just put in a whole, this is about 1 cup of chicken broth. There we go. It's getting a little bit thinner there. We want to have a good watery soup at first so that it can boil the meat and the potatoes and soften them up. And we're going to be doing that for a while, and that's why we want the tomato, or the potatoes and the carrots to be cut kind of big. Okay, so I'm going to pour this in. Usually I don't really measure it, but I'll measure it today just to give you some sense. So there's a quarter, and there's about a half cup, and that's not enough. So we're going to put that wine in, and I will stir it and see how it goes. It's getting to be a nice aroma there. And we've got the garlic in and everything. Yeah, I think that's enough wine. And finally, the last little bit, the bay leaves. I'm going to take 5 or 6 or 7 bay leaves and just drop them in. These are dried ones, not the chopped kind. These are dried whole bay leaves. And then I just stir them into the soup. Okay. And it's been boiling up, and this is a bigger pot than I'm used to, much wider at the bottom. So I'm going to turn down the heat a bit because the stew is shallow and it's not deep in the pot, and it's all got more contact with the heated surface of the bottom. I don't want it to burn. So I'm going to stir it a bit, and then I'm going to cover it and turn it down to about low or medium low, and I'm going to let it simmer. I don't want the boiling to stop, but I don't want the boiling to be big roiling bubbles either. And then I just leave it like this, and I check it about every 5 or 10 minutes. Minimum, probably want to boil it for 30 minutes. If you want to keep adding a little bit of water, or mostly chicken broth is good, then you can boil it for longer and the meat will get softer. You can see the color here is a little bit red, and that's kind of exactly the way it should be. So I'm going to set this for about 10 minutes. I think I'm going to add a bit more of the chicken stock before I do. So this is free-range organic chicken stock from Pacific Foods, and it's also very low sodium. And just add it in here. I'm gonna use another cup or so, and that's just to make sure that the liquid stays in here. So it's gonna get thin for a second, but as it simmers, much of that liquid will kind of go away, and we'll get the thick stew with meat that has lots of flavor and hopefully is very soft.